Welcome into another edition of the DNVR Avalanche Trade Deadline Frenzy. Looking at Sean Monahan today. A bit of an odd case just in general. Obviously, in years prior, he had the injuries with Calgary that kept him out for basically an entire season. Ended up going to Montreal, where he's played some games this year. He's returned to the ice, so there's that. I think there's a lot of question marks around certainly his fit with Colorado that we'll get into, and if that makes any sense as we can bring up his statistics for the year here. This is just a weird one to me. Where are you guys at?
Yeah, Monahan's a guy that people are going to know the name. You know, through the first 5 years of his career, I think he outscored Nathan MacKinnon.
He did, yeah.
And you're like, boy, he was a really good player. It's funny, he was the third guy in Calgary with Johnny Gaudreau and Matt Tkachuk. Like, those were the dudes.
Until he wasn't.
Yeah, and injuries and total ineffectiveness of his play just fell off a cliff. Went to Montreal and was pretty good for the Habs at the start of the year. He was actually a pretty good player. And that's where you're like, there's some intrigue there. He really needed to stay healthy. Yeah. Got hurt again. He's still hurt as of this recording.
What is the injury? Do we know?
It's a lower body injury, so it's not more back stuff, but it's a lower body injury, and he is supposed to be back by the middle of the month. So if there's any setback, you are trading for a totally damaged asset that hasn't played.
Yeah.
Even if he gets back and he's been playing for a week before the deadline, how comfortable are you with the recent injury history? The fact that his salary is really high.
Right. See that? So really for me, obviously, you know, we can get, we'll get more into it, but like, I think this will be the shortest video we've done so far because what you just said right there, AJ, is I think enough reason for a team in Colorado's situation to be out. If you're going to go spend assets, you want someone that you know, obviously you're never any guarantees of what type of production you're going to get out of a player, but you want someone that you feel fairly confident in that you're getting. And obviously, you also don't know on injuries, but you don't want someone that's coming off of injuries and you're hoping to not re-aggravate something.
We can bring up his player card, and I think the biggest thing for me is it's that on top of the fact he hasn't been very good, and you don't have the things that we have with Taves, with Pool Party. He doesn't really fit in Colorado.
Right.
He's not a very good skater. He doesn't do a lot of the things that the Avs are looking for at this deadline. And that's where I really start to struggle with this one as a sensible pick for the Avs.
And then the cap hit is my other problem, that you're probably having to spend more assets to get some retention. It's still going to be a big enough dollar figure that you're not like really solving much of a problem beyond like you would with a guy like Jonathan Taves.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not really saving you that much money. Sean Monahan 2-3 years ago, absolutely. But I just think that this version of him, not as effective. Injuries.
We can roll right into his career numbers here with the play driving, and it's the same thing we talked about with Taves a little bit. If you got Monahan 5 years ago, this is a much longer video than it's about to be. But he's just not that guy anymore.
You do look at this year, though. You do isolate this season, okay? And he's essentially league average. Okay. And that's fine. The big thing with him, and you know, if you can bring back up his current season player card, if possible. If not, it's fine. But yeah, you see the number one thing that's causing him problems here is goals. Yeah. It's scoring, because his actual offense and his actual defense are okay. With the offense taking a big jump this year in particular, the defense has always kind of just been iffy. It's when you're a number 1C, that defense is not acceptable. When you're a 2C, you can live with that. But the offense has been a lot more palatable this season. The finishing is in the tank. So is that just gone forever?
Right.
Or is that just a product of environment? Well, it was a little bit better this year. The problem is that he just did not play very much. He hasn't played enough this season to really affect these types of numbers. And the play driving, it's okay. My number one thing, Rudo, you mentioned it, as a stylistic fit in Colorado, it's a bad fit.
Yeah.
He's not a very good skater. But if you get the guy that he was this year, not the last 2 years, but this year, and this guy is 27. All right, this isn't 34-year-old Jonathan Taves where you're you're trying to like
End of the line
squeeze the
style.
last
Yeah,
good
yeah,
hockey
yeah,
out of him.
yeah.
This is a guy where you could say, hey, if this goes well for us, this guy, a guy that could be around for a little while.
Another concern from that card, we don't have to go back to it, but the quality of competition was not that impressive. He's not playing against tough guys. And as someone you're bringing in, if you're bringing in Monahan, you're asking him to be your 2C.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe kind of like with the Taves thing.
Like a little bit of a rotation.
It
there,
could be.
sure,
It could
but
be. You know, if he comes in the regular season and he's your 3C and he lights it up, he plays great for you. Then maybe you give him the increased responsibility.
I just think it's tough to target him when you're not locking him into your 2C position.
I don't, because you're trying to see it. You're trying to see what he is, and that's why I think it's a bad fit in Colorado. Other than just the style problems,
fair enough.
Because the Avs don't have time for this.
Yeah.
The Avs are looking for solutions, not guys that bring more questions.
Right.
They want answers to things. They're trying to answer the problems that they have. They're trying to fill holes here, not get a guy where they're like, well, what do we do here? You know, like this is a guy that makes a lot more sense for maybe a wild card team or a team that's on the come up that's trying to find a guy that can really help them. That for Colorado, this is a really weird fit.
You're trying to find like someone who you think you can, to your point, like the kind of teams that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
You're trying to find a guy that's like, well, maybe we can get him, we can buy on the dip. And, we can really get something beyond, value beyond what we paid for him.
Well, and it's what Montreal did. They got a first-round pick for taking on his salary.
Right.
Now they're trying to sell him at the deadline for another pick.
And I just think, even with a guy like Taves, where, you have some question marks about where he could ultimately land, you feel pretty comfortable in knowing what you are getting one way or the other. It's just a matter of how he actually fits and performs. This just seems like too big of a question mark in terms of what you're actually getting.
The final nail into the coffin for me, if you can bring up his career arcs as well, if you get what you want out of him after you trade for him, he's going to price himself out of coming back to Colorado after the fact.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think if you get what you want out of him, he's probably gone.
My thing about that would be that he would finally have had some success. There would be reason to stay.
It's just realistically, if you bring him in, you're looking at him to be like what, 0.75 points per game or better.
I don't have a number marked for him.
Sure.
I'm not comfortable with the player.
I just don't see how again the Avs can afford him if he is effectively what they want him to be. You never know, but it's certainly not as dead set as someone like a Puljujarvi who's an RFA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have very much control over the process for sure.
So.
Great, we rehabbed your career. You did all these great things for us, and now you leave.
Yeah.
Not a great ending to that story, for sure.
You never know, though.
Yeah, I guess it is for him.
We're talking about all of the options. While we may not believe Monahan is a great one for Colorado, let us know what you think down in the comments. Be sure to check out the rest of the playlist if you've missed some episodes. I'm sure we have some more coming after this video in the list as well. So keep it here to the DNVR YouTube channel, and we will see you in the next video.